Hi guys, greetings from Dr. A. Muthamina Losini, Assistant Professor of English, Mother Teresa Women's University, Kodaikanal. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that it will be very useful. So it's a part of American literature. In the last video lecture, we have seen Lorraine Hansberry's drama Raisin in the Sun. So the title of the play is taken from Langston Hughes' poem, okay, that I told you. So that poem we are going to see now. That is called Dream Deferred. Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. Okay, before we move into the poem, I just wanted to tell you something about Langston Hughes. Who is Langston Hughes? How he is important for the American literature. Langston Hughes was an American poet, a social activist, novelist, playwright, and a columnist from Missouri. Okay, Missouri. So he was a poet, activist, novelist, playwright, and a columnist. And he is known for his new literary art that is called jazz poetry. Okay, he is known for the new literary field that is called jazz poetry. And he is also best known as a leader of Harlem Renaissance. Harlem is a place where Black community or the colored people are living in ghettos. So he is the best known leader for that Harlem Renaissance. And also he wrote about the Negro's life, titled The Negro Was in Vogue. The Negro Was in Vogue. And it was later paraphrased as When Harlem Was in Vogue. So the Negro was in vogue was paraphrased as Harlem was in vogue. And he became a prolific writer at an early age itself, and he moved to New York City as a young man where he made his career. And he graduated from high school in Cleveland, Ohio, and soon he began his studies at Columbia University in New York. And he became noticed from New York publishers, first in the magazine called The Crisis. And then he became a publisher, and he is known in the creative community in Harlem. And he graduated from Lincoln University. In addition to poetry, Hughes also wrote plays, short stories, and he also published several non-fiction works too. From 1942 to 1962, the civil rights movement was gaining traction. At that time, he is a leading columnist. Okay, and then he published in 1921 in The Crisis, and it is the official magazine for NAACP. I told you that when I was talking about Lorraine Hansberry's parents were where they used to give, and they used to donate a lot of amount for NAACP, that is the Negro the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Okay, so where he wrote The Negro Speaks of Rivers. The Negro Speaks of Rivers, which became Hugh's signature poem, and that was collected in his first book of poetry. Okay, and then and Hugh's life and work were enormously influential during the Harlem Renaissance that happened in 1920. And his poetry and fiction portrayed the lives of working class blacks in America who are living with a lot of struggle, and also they have joy, laughter, and music. So, Langston Hughes portrayed his American people, his Afro American people, uh, full of struggle, joy, laughter, and music. And permitting his work is pride in the African American identity and its diverse culture. Okay, and he is quoted as saying he confronted the racial stereotypes and he protested social conditions, expanded African American image of itself, and he became a people's poet. He started to re-educate both the audience and the artist by lifting the theory of black aesthetics into reality. And his beautiful poem is published in My People in Crisis under the title My People in Crisis on 1923. That you must listen to that before we move into the poem. So it is very beautiful, and it is my favorite line of Langston Hughes. The night is beautiful. The night is beautiful. So the faces of my people. Okay, nobody called night is beautiful. Night is dark. Night is related to sadness, and light is related to something melancholic. So just like that, we happen to know about the night time. So here he stated, the night is beautiful. Why? So the faces of my people, it is colored people. So it reflects the faces of the colored people. So the faces of my people. The stars are beautiful. How it is? The stars are beautiful. The night is beautiful. The stars are beautiful. So how? The eyes of my people. It is very bright during the night. Okay. And beautiful also is the sun. So he talks about night, and also he talks about the daytime. That beautiful also is the sun. Just like that, beautiful also are the souls of my people. So how it is a very wonderful poem, which beautifully reflects the people of America. It is Afro-American people. Through this very simple poem, the night is beautiful, so the faces of my people. The stars are beautiful, so the eyes of my people. Beautiful also is the sun. Beautiful also are the souls of my people. Written by Langston Hughes. So, with this poem, shall we move into the poem? Okay. And Hughes always stressed a racial consciousness and cultural nationalism. Okay, in all his works, and he is one of the few prominent black writers to champion racial consciousness as a source of inspiration for all the black artists. And his first novel was Not Without Laughter, which won the Harmon Gold Medal for Literature. Okay, his first novel was Not Without Laughter. For that one, he won a Harmon Gold Medal. And uh, And his first collection of short stories was published in 1934 with The Ways of White Folks. Okay, so that is titled The Ways of the White Folks. And so with that one, I think that we will move into uh, the poem we have prescribed, that is Dream Deferred. Okay, this Dream Deferred. So the title itself seems to imply so many meanings. So when the dreams are fulfilled, you will be very happy. You wanted to cherish that moment. Each one should have a dream. It is it is a good dream or bad dream, or which will give you happiness or sadness, or sometimes dreams threaten you during the night time. Here Langston Hughes didn't talk about that kind of dreams. It's a dream, American dream. So if you watch the previous video lecture on A Raisin in the Sun, I talked about the American dream of people in a family. So now the dream deferred. That means the dream did not fulfill. The dream delayed. So just like that, Martin Luther King said, justice delayed is justice denied. Okay, just like that, if the dreams are delayed, he may be scared. He might have scared that maybe his dreams are also deferred, denied. Delayed means denied, maybe denied. So what happens to a dream deferred? If dream deferred, if you cannot accomplish your dream, if you cannot achieve your dream, if it seems impossible to achieve something in your life, it seems impossible to achieve what you wanted to achieve. The paths are rough and very hard. So how do you feel? So that is reflected in this poem with very few lines. Okay, shall we start? So does it dry up? What will happen to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore, or then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? So this is the poem. It's a very simple poem. You could remember this poem also. You could memorize the poem to understand the difficulties of Black people, how they suffer. Okay. Here, this poem, The Dream Deferred, was written by Langston Hughes. I gave you introduction also. Okay. So this poem consists of 11 lines, and it is open verse to decide that each reader could understand in their own style, in their own perception, what will happen later. So it's an open verse, and it does not have any specific stanza. But even though we could divide the poem into two parts, first one is how a dream deferred. Okay, dream deferred, and then next part is about hope and also hopelessness. Hope and also hopelessness. Okay, let us move into the poem now. The poem, it is otherwise called Harlem. It has another name called Harlem. Okay, a dream deferred, so within bracket Harlem, which is written by Langston Hughes, who is an African American poet during the Harlem Renaissance. He talks about a dream which is deferred or delayed. The dream is the dream is about equality. So you might have remembered Martin Luther King, I have a dream also. So there he talks about equality, okay, independence, and eradication of discrimination between the whites and the blacks. So, like that, the dream is that of equality and freedom for the African people, immigrants who are living in America. So, who have been badly discriminated against on the basis of their color in America for ages. Okay, for ages they have been discriminated. So, this poem, with very few lines, beautifully portraying the position of Black people living in Harlem. Okay, and here in the first part, you have a questions, that is rhetorical questions that did not require any answer, but it makes you think. Okay, rhetorical question means it does not expect any answer from the reader or from the audience. Instead, it makes you think further. Okay, that is rhetorical questions. Here, like a raisin, does it dry up? So you have uh, one, two, three, first line, third line, and then fifth, sixth, and then eighth, and then last 11th line. So you have a question mark. These are all rhetorical questions which make us think whether the judgment or sorry, whether the dream is deferred or denied or delayed. So the poet begins the poem with a doubt, that is hopelessness. Okay, and he ends the poem also with a doubt. Does it explode? Again, he has a doubt. It makes the reader to decide and think what is the present status of the Black people in America. Okay, this poem begins with a question. What happens to dream deferred? What will happen if the dream deferred? You just imagine yourself that you have a dream and you have an aspiration or you have a desire, but you, in certain level of a situation, you came to a conclusion that it is not going to be fulfilled. It is impossible to achieve. It is impossible to accomplish. So what will be your state of mind? So in the same state of mind, the poet also is. So when he wrote the poem, if they didn't get freedom, if they are not treated equally among the white people, if they are treated with discrimination, so what will happen? So this is the question posed by Lang, okay, posed by the poet Langston Hughes in this poem. So here, this is the direct question. The poem itself is a question posed to American people and also his own community, asking that, and also the entire audience in general. And the poet wondered that what will happen if if the dream is delayed. And the line, the breakup, the line, the next line, he came to the next line. So it indicates that how painful it is to bear if your dream is not fulfilled. How you suffered physically and mentally because his dream did not turn into true. his dreams are only dreams. There is no possibility of reality. So does it dry up? What will happen? Does it dry up? How it dry up? Like a raisin in the sun. So here he uh, represented the dream deferred with so many similes. What are those similes? So like a raisin in the sun. What does it mean by like a raisin in the sun? So this line is a line Lorraine Hansberry used as a title for his play. Okay, please don't forget. Please do remember. So, like a raisin in the sun, that means it's a dry fruit. You might have heard and you might have tasted it. So it lost its essence, juice, and it shrinked and it become dry. It is not fresh. But till then, uh, it does not lose its essence, does not lose its value. It has all the nutritious values, even if it dries out to be dry, even if it shrinks itself, even if it is shapeless. Okay, just like a grapes very juicy, very attractive, and we like to taste. But raisin, so it seems very shrink and black. It becomes very black and brown, but it does not lose its essence. So that is the meaning the poet wanted to convey. So the colored people are just like raisin in the sun. So what will happen to dream deferred? Or maybe they may like a raisin in the sun. That means it dries up when kept in the sun for a long time. But they won't lose hope. Maybe the raisin in the sun is an example of hopeless situations. But the raisin does not lose its value, even it is dried in the sun. Just like that, the African American people, they do not lose their hope. Even in that depressed, distressed situations, like a raisin in the sun. That's what the poet wanted to tell us. That is one simile. Next one is, or fester like a sore. That means the wound is not cured for a long time. So it was not given proper medical medicine for the wound, for the injurious body. So fester like a sore. When it was not given a proper treatment, how will be the wound? It has a pus, and later it started giving a bad odor, stinking, and there is no possibility of curing, no medicine. So maybe the dream deferred is just like a sore which cannot be cured. That means which cannot be fulfilled. There is no solution, there is no remedy for the wound to be cured. So fester like a sore and then run. That means delay in recovery of that wound. So he compared a dream deferred with raisin in the sun and also with fester like a sore, like a sore. That is second simile. Third one is, does it stink like rotten meat? So how will be the rotten meat? If it is fresh, you can eat. You can cook and eat. But if you didn't keep in the fridge, inside the fridge, what will happen to the meat? It will be rotten. it is uh, um, it has to be thrown in the trash. It is of no use, no value, nothing. So the dream deferred is of nothing, just like stink like rotten meat. If it is the meat is kept for a long time, it will give you a bad smell. Okay, bad odor, which you cannot tolerate. So maybe it stink like, does it stinks like, does it stink like rotten meat? Or a crust and sugar over? So fourth one is, if you keep the sweets for a long time, it also rot away. So now the poet tries to convey that, like all these similes, maybe the dream of an African American also will be delayed. And also they may suffer. It is very painful. Okay. And next one, maybe it just sags. And like a heavy load. Or does it explode? So how it is? If you keep the things in the water, it becomes very heavy. You cannot carry. And at last, it is unbearable. You cannot tolerate. You cannot carry the burden evermore. What will happen if you carry the burden for a long time in your mind? Sometimes after, it will explode. So does it explode one day? Okay. So he asked question. So in this question, these questions reflect so many answers, so many thought or views and vistas to the Afro-American people. And the poet shifts from the rhetorical questions to declarative statement in the ninth line. Maybe it just sags. It is a declarative statement. Sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? And the dream deferred is now like a heavy, immovable load, which symbolizes that no hope at all. Symbolizes the hopeless situation. So in the final line, when he asked again the rhetorical questions that shows us that the poet also has a hope. There may be delay in accomplishing, fulfilling the dream, but it should not be denied. So he has a hope of accomplishing his dream when he asked the final question, rhetorical question, does it explode? This line is italicized and it shifts the tone. So from the declarative statement, when you ask the question, the tone also changes. The poet fears that the dream which has been delayed for so many years, decades, it may explode one day. It may shatter one day. That means there is no hope of accomplishing the dream. So heavy load you are having in your mind, at last you cannot carry forevermore further. So it will explode. So this is how Langston Hughes finishes his poem. Okay, and here dreams are driving force for every human being. So, without a desire or without any wish or without a dream, to lead a life is very difficult. So, each individual might have got different dreams to be fulfilled in our near future, maybe short term dreams or long term dreams. Okay, it may take short term to be fulfilled or long term to be fulfilled. So every person has a sort of a dreams and goals. And achieving the goals is not an easy thing. It may be very difficult. He must undergo so many struggles and pain on the way on to achieve these goals. The poem Dream Deferred is one man's expression of his dream during the difficult time. A black man in that time where African Americans were considered, and at that time they were considered an inferior group of people, and they are considered inferior by the white people. So their dreams and goals would have been very difficult to realize. And here Langston Hughes expresses his frustration, his depression, that why their dreams are deferred. Okay? And here it's a powerful, this poem is a powerful illustration of a dream that that is within each person, Afro-American person, which ways they're making everything else and one does never enough. It's a, and here the words and phrases are fester like a sore or crust and over, sugar over are both symbolic of the hard manual labor. Okay, hard manual labor that African Americans had during the early 1900s. And historical studies also recounted the work that many men did during this time. This period is they are working in the cotton and sugar fields or working with crops. Okay, so they were working in cotton field and sugar fields and working with crops. So he beautifully explained that how painful for the Afro Americans to achieve their dreams in such situations. Okay, and it is very important for everyone to achieve their dream, and people often dream widely and unrealistically, and some people dream about basic human rights such as dignity, freedom, liberty, equal right, and access to education. And socioeconomic and political conditions sometimes put people in the dire situations. Okay, these are about Langston Hughes. Okay, how he is a leader of Harlem Renaissance. He is a person um, known for the first poet to introduce jazz poetry, and he is a novelist, playwright. Okay, and this is about the poem. This poem has 11 lines. How it has been divided into two parts. Okay, just like a dream deferred and hope and hopelessness. So these are all the similes referred in the poem. Okay. Yes. So this is about the poem. So here, such people, Afro-American people, the economic conditions, political conditions, put the people in very bad situations, and they do not even have an access to their fundamental human needs. Okay, For such people, achieving the dreams is really very important one. But here, shattering the dream maybe lead to shattering their life, okay, their lives altogether. So here, Langston Hughes talks about the shattering of dreams, the deferred dreams, unfulfilled dreams. Okay, how it is very painful, how it is it's a kind of agony the Afro-American people underwent. Okay, and some critic stated that it speaks about what happens to dreams when they are put on hold. The poem leaves it up to the reader to decide. So at the end of the poem, you have a question mark. It means that the poet leaves it in the hands of the reader to decide if the dream is being questioned. Okay, so so it left to the reader to decide what will happen if the dreams are deferred. Okay, and we have so many hope to reach on our lifetime, and that hope gives us a drive to live our lives and accomplish our goals. When reaching our goals, we will do anything to reach our goals. We will do anything to reach the destination. But what happens when your dreams deferred? Okay, so that situation is explained by the poet Langston Hughes in this poem. Okay, Harlem or the Dream Deferred. So this poem has been written by Langston Hughes during 1920s. That time, Black Americans went through difficult hardships and they found comfort only in dreaming. So they are comfort only in dreaming. So the poet talks about the difficult period of African people during 1920s. Okay, so here they lived in ghettos. Okay, ghettos mean dungeons, just like slum. They do not have a proper roof to live, proper shelter, proper food to live in. So the people who lived in ghettos of Harlem, they dream about their better life, better place, better opportunities for their families, for their future. If the dreams of Harlem is deferred, what will happen? Okay, that is the question Hughes is asking in this poem. And the questions that Langston posed in this poem, throughout the poem, allow the readers to reflect on the effects of delaying our dreams. Okay, so we could also imagine sometimes that if our dreams are deferred, so it may be the same situations how African dreams are deferred. So just like the similes Langston Hughes used in this poem, so we also felt very painful at heart. Okay, so this is how this poem, The Dream Deferred. So I explain you, I think I have explained to you in a well mannered, and it is easy for you to understand and comprehend the meaning of the small, beautiful, very simple language of the poem. Okay, shall we move on to the next poem, that is by Ruben Bright. Sorry, that is the poem by Edwin Arlington Robinson. Edwin Arlington Robinson. It's a poem called Reuben Bright. It is also a very small poem. That is why I have uh, taken along with The Dream Deferred. Okay, that is about the American dream. Here, Edwin Arlington Robinson wrote about his own experience when he was a small boy. Okay, so don't confuse yourself with Edwin Arlington Robinson and with Langston Hughes. Okay, so this poem is titled Reuben Bright, written by Edwin Arlington Robinson. And Edwin Arlington Robinson lived from 1869 to 1935. He spent first part of his life as a sort of an ink-stained wretch. He wrote poetry, taking odd jobs to keep alive. So he started writing poetry in his earlier stage itself in order to lead a good life, and he has done a lot of jobs, okay, but he was living in a very poverty condition. He is from a very poor family. Okay, he went to Harvard for a couple of years, but he cannot complete his studies. And he already wanted to write. So when he was 11 years old itself, he wanted to write. And his first book was Children of the Night, which is an anthology of poems by Robinson, Edwin Robinson. That is Children of the Night, which met little success, which does not get much popularity. Okay, so that drives him to very tragic situations in his life. So he expected to gain more from the book, earn more from the book he has written, but he did not get anything. So that was one of the reasons reason for his tragic life. Okay, and another reasons also, um, Robinson's, the Reuben Bright is actually about Robinson's uh, personal life. That is, his mother died of black diphtheria. That is just like a pandemic, as we are living in COVID-19. How if anyone is affected by COVID positive, we are not ready to see him, or we must be very cautious that we should not touch him. uh, they are given a separate place, okay, for treatment, everything. So even if they die, we are not allowed to give any final rituals or final respect to the person who bereaved. So just the same situation happened to his mother when he died of black diphtheria. So at that time, uh, it is restricted that no human being should touch that body. But so no one came to give the last homage to his mom. Only Robinson and his two brothers, who together lay her out. They dig the grave by themselves and they buried her. And their father also already dead, so now they became orphan. So her death came just few days later. He published his first book of poetry, that is called Children of the Night. Okay, and here one of his brother, whose name was Dean, and he was overdosed on morphine, drug consumer. Okay, another brother whose name was Herman. He married the girl whom Edwin already loved. So he was dejected all the most from his family members. So he lost his dad, he lost his mom, and even there is no support from his brothers too. Okay, and it was a dejected, unknown person he became. Okay, when Roosevelt was a president of America, and he requested Robinson to come to live in White House. Okay, come to live in White House, and was stunned to know that. And Roosevelt was very shocked to know that he was very poor and he was not known to anyone else. He did not become popular or familiar. Nobody knows that it is such a good writer, poet. So he was shocked. Okay, so he arranged for Roosevelt arranged for Robinson to have a job in customs house in New York. So he arranged for a job. So what is his job is he has to come there and he will read a newspaper and then he went. So that was his job, to show everyone that every day he used to come to that custom house in New York. So his job was to come in and open his roll top and read the daily newspaper and then leave, placing the paper on the chair to signify that he has visited that place and he read the paper. Okay, and with the help of Roosevelt, the Children of the Night, that was not popular previously when it was published. So Roosevelt published it once again. Okay, so that which gather lot of fame and familiarity to Robinson. And his enduring poems are ones like Reuben Bright. So his most famous poem is Reuben Bright, which is where the it studies the psychological psyche of a person. This poem reads the psyche of the person. So when you read the poem, you must understand that the psychology of a person, how it will be when he lost everyone in the world. Okay, and this poem Edwin Robinson talks about that, talks about the death of a loved one, especially protracted illness, knows the sick, hollow feeling Bright has in the poem. Okay, so here he talks about the sickness, okay, that is protracted, that cannot be prevented by or healed by anyone else. So that kind of a illness he talks about. Okay, here the idea of butchering creatures would certainly not feel right after watching death take someone. Okay, here he talks about the heartbreaking portrait of man's grief. Though he was a butcher, how he grieved for the loss. And here let us see that this work parades Robinson's compassion for his human beings, compassion for other people he creates. He does not judge what is right or what is wrong. He just tells a story through this poem. And that story is about love and humanity, laughter and grief. Okay, so here this poem is about his love, his longing, his laughter, and his grief and life. Okay, okay, dear students. And shall we move into the poem now? Okay, just just you read once and it is very easy poem and you may not need dictionary to look into the meaning of the words. Okay, so he has used very simple language as Langston Hughes. Because he was a butcher, he stated in the beginning itself, because means reason. He gave a reason that he was a butcher and thereby did earn an honest living and did right. I would not have you think that Reuben Bright was any more a brute than you or I. For when they told him that his wife must die, he stared at them and shook with grief and fright and cried like a great baby half that night. and made the women cry to see him cry. So that is the first stanza. After she was dead, he had paid the singers and the sexton and the rest. He packed a lot of things that she had made most mournfully away in an old chest of hers and put some chopped up cedar boughs in with them and tore down the slaughterhouse. Okay, that is the poem. So when in the first reading itself, we came to understand that Reuben Bright work job is a butcher. So usually when we came to see the sight of a butcher uh, while he is cutting the meat, we may be scared that how daring or how rough he's handling the meat, how mm, so there's a kind of rudeness and roughness in his character. So such a kind of a person the poet describes in this poem, that is Reuben Bright. He was a butcher. He was a butcher. He has to be rough. Yes, he is rough. And also unfeeling. He must not feel sad for someone died, because every day he used to kill so many goats or bulls or chicks. So he might be rough. He should not have any feeling for the dying soul. But what happens when news is brought to him that his wife is to die? His wife is going to die soon. So what is his feeling? In the first line, it is stated that he is a butcher, but he is leading a honest life. Okay. I would not have you think that Reuben Bright was any more a brute than you or I. You should not think that he is very rude and rough because that he was a butcher. Okay. So don't think that he is a brute than you and I, because we are very rough and rude when you look at Reuben Bright. Because why he says that he is very soft, he has a feeling towards him so far, because these two words indicate that he is going to give you reason that why it happens, what is the reason, why you should not think that he did not have any feeling or he is not rough. For when they told him that his wife must die, he stared at them, he looked at them, he wondered at them, and shook with grief and fright, with fear and with grief. He started crying like a baby. Okay. When the people who are around, who are sitting around or who are standing around here around Reuben Bright, when they looked at the crying of Reuben Bright, they also started crying. That is why the poet stated that he cried like a great baby half that night. How the baby will cry during the night. The midnight, if the baby cries, no one could stop him from crying. Okay, we may not know the reason for that cry. Just like that, he cried. And he also made the women cry to see him cry. When they saw him cry, they also started crying after she was dead. So when Reuben Bright came to know that his wife is going to leave him soon, he started crying like a baby. Though he was a butcher, We think that he's rough and he's unfeeling too because of his profession as a butcher. But what happens? He just like a baby, he cried. But after that, how did he react? After she was dead, he paid for all the rituals. In this poem, Reuben Bright, Edwin Arlington Robinson tells us that how Reuben Bright felt, though he was a butcher, for the death of his wife. So after she was dead, he paid the singers, that is choirs, the sexton, so one who is conducting the funeral, and the people who are helping in the funeral, and the rest. So for everyone, he paid the amount. Okay. And he packed a lot of things that she has made. After paying the singers, the choirs, sexton, and other people who have helped for the funeral of his wife, what he did, he packed the things of his wife that was handcrafted by herself and which was kept in the old chest. Okay. And he opened the old chest, and then she where she kept her uh, crafts, because she earned the living by making some crafts. So he packed those crafts as a remembrance of his wife, and then he kept inside that old chest some chopped up cedar boughs. It's a traditional implication of death. So if someone died, it's symbolically represented through the cedar boughs. So he chopped some cedar boughs and he left those boughs inside the old chest. And he has collected the craft work done by his wife from that chest, and he kept it with him. And what happened to the slaughterhouse where he was doing his butcher work? So he tore them the slaughterhouse. That means he destroyed the slaughterhouse. That implied that he is not working in the slaughterhouse anymore. He will do some other work, and he may changed his way from the butcher to something else. So in such a way, he tore down the slaughterhouse and he left the place. This is how the poem ends. The Reuben Bright, the poem ends. And uh, here Robinson described the in-depth feeling of a person who grieved for the loss of his wife. We may think that he did not have any feeling. He may be rude, rough, as he is a butcher. But contradictory, he felt and he cried like a baby. The cry of that person, Reuben Bright, makes other people who are surrounded him also cry along with him. So this is how he mourned for the death of his wife. And not only he left that place, that did not mean that he never liked to remember her wife. That means he collected the artifacts of his wife along with him, and then he wanted to cherish her within himself. So but he may think that he cannot live in that place further, because he cannot bear the absence of his wife in the same place where he was living with her right, ever since they got married. So that may be another meaning that he destroyed that slaughterhouse from where he earned so far, and he left the place getting the things along with him that was made by his wife. This is how Robinson, Edwin Robinson ends this poem, Proven Bright. Here, the poet, through this poem, tells of a butcher, Reuben Bright, who might be rough and unfeeling because of his profession. But when news is brought that his wife is to die, he cries like a baby. When she dies, she packs all the articles she handcrafted in the chest, and he adds a cedar bows as a symbol of death in the chest, and then he destroys the slaughterhouse. And one critic said that this poem shows man's devotion to his wife. Like other narrative poems, this poem also has a characteristic signature that it seems it's an extraordinary story, according to one of the critics, who is Donald Hall. And the poem had been printed with the last line saying that towed down to the slaughterhouse. So the poem ends with that note that towed down to the slaughterhouse. That reflect that that reflects that he has shifted to another business, and will he's not ready to continue the same profession of a butcher. Okay. And so this poem is an interpretation of Robinson's work, and it clearly denotes that his compassion for human being, and uh, here his love for his wife. Okay, and he does not judge the people, he leaves as it is. So we could also bring one more meaning that in spite of the loss and the pain he has, life has to go on. So he has to move in ahead of life. So he started living with the memories of his wife. This poem is about love, longing, laughter, and grief, and life indeed. So, this is how Reuben Bright ends. I hope that uh, you understand the poem well. And let me meet you with one more lesson in American literature. Hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you so much for watching. So these are all interpretations. Okay. So it's a dramatic change, how it is developed narratively. Okay, I told you how Donald Hall commented about this poem. And this is a kind of a sonnet, octave and sestet. Octave ends with the grief, and then the sestet reveals that how he is genius. Though he is a cow killer, he converted and he stopped that business, and he decided to start uh, next one as he wished. And here also, as I in the introduction I told you, the butchering is associated with roughness, anger, violence. At last, he tore down It suggests an angry statement. That means he closed the shop, which gives him life, and he tried to turn over a new life. That means new leaf. New leaf means new life. And also he started mending his ways. If at all anything, any mistake, any wrong he has committed means it is he could change his ways, and he entered into more gentleman like. And when his wife died, he thinks that Reuben Bright thinks that burden was removed. And finally, he cleansed himself of that self imposed duty that he should take care of his wife. He is relieved from that burden. Now he is ready to start his life again for himself. And he never wanted to be a butcher. Now there is no need for him to continue with the slaughterhouse. And here in this poem, uh, from Reuben Bright portrayed, here the poet portrayed the feeling of Reuben Bright. His weeping made the women cry, women who were probably at his home to help him care for neighbors and the like. Okay, it's a heartbreaking, the whole poem is a heartbreaking portrait of man's grief in general. And Robinson's poem is a very clean, thoughtful poetry which influenced a variety of poets, notably Robert Frost. And Robert Frost himself stated that his theme was unhappiness itself, but his skill was as happy as it was playful. Okay, so these are all I told you already. So this is how the poem ends. Okay, we will meet in one more video lecture later. Thank you for watching this video.